The other is that there has been a feeling that because of the interruption of the annual summits, there is some uh, distance, political distance that has been created between India and Russia, uh, in part also because of the conflict in Ukraine, and what might be speculated as pressure coming from the West, as well as our getting close to the United States. Now, I think it was very important to remove these mounting misapprehensions that somehow the relationship between India and Russia was becoming cooler because of some of these factors, which is not entirely correct in terms of interpreting the state of India-Russia relations. Because very high-level dialogue has been maintained between the two countries at other levels. And some of the institutional dialogues that we have from the Soviet times have been working. Our foreign minister went to Russia in December 2023 when he had what was exceptional, a meeting with President Putin. And it was then announced more or less that this year, Prime Minister Modi would be visiting Russia. I think it's very important that we convey this signal domestically, of course, but also to the international community. There will be a continuation of India's foreign policy in Modi's third term. That any apprehension that because BJP has not got full majority this time might result in some changes in our foreign policy stance, particularly the speculation that we'll become more amenable to Western pressure, especially from the United States. So it was important, therefore, in that context, to send a signal that this is simply not the case, that our relationship with Russia is will be preserved and maintained because it is in our larger national interest, and that we don't see our relationship with Russia in any way interfering with our relationship with the United States, no matter what the United States may feel about it. After all, if there is a collapse of US-Russia ties, it is not because of India. And if there's a problem in Ukraine and the issues of NATO expansion and EU expansion and the regime change policies in Ukraine, as is being alleged, it is not because of India-Russia relations. So there's no reason why our relations with Russia should become hostage to what some may consider are serious geopolitical mistakes in US policy and European policy towards Russia. After all, the Ukraine conflict is a European conflict. It is a result of the failure of Europe to manage its security. Russia cannot be wished away. It's the largest country in the world. It's the biggest European country. The United States is far away, but Europe is right next to Russia, and Europe has to live with Russia. And therefore, some balance had to be found between the interests of the West and the interests of Russia. We have great interests in Central Asia, in SCO in general. And the SCO is in some ways consolidating itself with now Iran also having become a member. China dominates the SCO. The China-Pakistan tandem also operates in the SCO. The countries in the SCO region, especially the Central Asians, are very concerned about terrorism in the region, flowing from Afghanistan and from the jihadi organizations that have been operating in the region. They want more options. They don't want to be utterly dependent on China. Therefore, they want to look to India. We have some issues because these countries are landlocked and we don't have easy access to them. The international North-South corridor as well as the Chabahar route will give us that access. But that is work in progress. Why I'm saying all this is that India would have, Prime Minister would have gone for the SCO summit, but we just had elections, and there are a lot of issues that are emanating from these elections. Certainly, nobody can deny that the BJP has emerged weakened by these elections. Uh, there has to be political management at home. There are a lot of pressures on Prime Minister's time. He had to go to the G7, and I can give you the reasons why it was very important that he went. But I'll simply say that it was extremely important for him to go there and send the message that there'll be no change in our foreign policy, that Modi is in charge, fully in charge. He got the mandate of the people, and therefore convey a message of confidence and apprise them of his vision of how uh, international issues should be addressed in the interest of India, of course, but also the global South. Now, after that, for him then to run to SCO and then go for this bilateral summit with Russia would actually, in terms of the political timetable, would not have been very congenial. But
So,
decision to go to Russia, uh, he could have gone later when the BRICS summit was taking place, and this could have been combined with a bilateral summit. But the decision to accelerate his visit to Russia, in part, makes up for his absence from the SCO. The war in Ukraine has actually uh, had a very serious impact on international geopolitics. Uh, Firstly, Europe has become a hotbed of potential war, which can actually, if the West continues to escalate and is determined to strategically defeat Russia, could turn into some kind of a nuclear standoff, which would be catastrophic for the world. And it is amazing that the Western countries are not realizing the dangers that they're creating for humanity by continuing to escalate this conflict. So that is one. Indirectly, the rest of the world will suffer, including India. Then there is the issue of the global South, where because of disruptions caused by the conflict in Ukraine, there are some downside effects, whether it relates to fuel fuel issues, fertilizer issues, food issues, what have you. And these have been highlighted by India at the G20 summit that it shared and continue to be highlighted even now. Uh, that is a second, the impact of this on the global economy and the needs of the developing countries. Thirdly, with so much money being funneled by the West into the Ukraine conflict, there would be concern that the larger issues of the involving the IMS and World Bank and development issues and more and debt, addressing the issues of debt relief to the developing countries, funding climate change technologies, abiding by the commitments that the West has made in terms uh, of finding resources. $100 billion a year is even not enough. So there's a lot of they will be distracted from this, including the sustainable development goals that the UN has set for the developing countries. So there is this. Fourth is the strengthening of Russia-China ties, which for a country like India does pose a problem because we have very difficult relations with China, and Russia is in fact now helping China to build up its economy further because China has great need for natural resources, raw materials, and what have you. And Russia is a great source and it's next door, including oil and gas. Uh, so that those strengthening of ties changes the balance. Russia-China relationship is today much, much stronger than the India-Russia relationship, and India-China ties are in great difficulty. So it's very important for us that we maintain some balance in these triangular ties by remaining close to Russia, so that Russia has stakes in India. If we withdrew from Russia, we wouldn't be actually causing huge problems for ourselves. As regards Russia supporting China in the South China Sea, in some ways, yes, in some ways, no. In some ways, yes, because Japan and South Korea, as you know, have become very active in terms of supporting Ukraine. So they are taking sides, which explains why why Putin has visited North Korea. Uh, Now, the visit to Vietnam is actually in order to balance uh, the the Vietnam's ties with the United States, which have become very close. Uh, so, so the, so I don't think the China factor is that important there. But yes, they have taken a position against, in fact, the Indo-Pacific concept. They have taken a position against Quad, which means that Russia and China on these issues in which India has difference of opinion with Russia and obviously with China, we are not on the same uh, wicket, as it were, with Russia. But if Russia has taken a position in South China Sea, it is because China is supporting them, on the Ukraine issue. So there is kind of a quid pro quo that is happening there. And what is it behind this? It is United States of America. Since US treats both China and Russia as its adversaries, so therefore these adversaries will get together and try to weaken US position in the Western Pacific. That's the game that is being played. It has nothing to do with India. But when it comes to the Indian Ocean, the question you asked me, no, Russia is not at all in any way helping China in the Indian Ocean. We have
These
naval access.
countries.
Since America is the leading power politically, militarily, economically, and the entire governance system of the uh, world has been built on American premises, structures that they think were necessary for them to maintain their global leadership. After all, they are the founders of the United Nations along with the UK. They have um, tremendous military power. I don't know how many bases they have around the world. The figures differ, but some say 180, some say 300. They have an extremely powerful navy. They can reach any point of the globe, any point of conflict, and exert power. They think of themselves as uh, the global policemen of some sorts. Uh, more importantly, the strength of the dollar. The dollar is by far the most important international currency. And everybody wants to uh, have reserves kept in dollars because they have great confidence in the US economy. They are a highly innovative country. They dominate the technology space, although they are being now challenged by countries like China, but they dominate this technology space. Um, they want to spread their values all over the globe. They have, because of their, commitment to, as they say, democracy and human rights. So they intervene in every part of the globe. They have organizations and entities who are involved in promoting the democracy and human rights, which leads them to interfere in the internal affairs of country, bring about regime changes. We've suffered ourselves. Their media is very, very active against us. So for all these reasons, uh, especially the power of the dollar, which they have weaponized. Um, who leads America, what policies they pursue, what initiatives they take, become very important for the rest of the world. In any real international issue, uh, no solution can be found unless America is on board. So there it is. And hence what you said, whoever is the president of the United States wields a great deal of power, huge power.
Yes.
And what his personality would be, what his inclinations would be, what his political choices would be, what his personality would be, becomes
Right.
important for the rest of the world. It is America's problem, though, of course, it has repercussions for the rest of the world. Because if you have incompetent presidents or uh, persons with uh, some kind of creeping dementia, some people claim some cognitive difficulties on the one hand, and some instability and narcissism on the other hand. So obviously, the international community would be concerned about who becomes the president of the United States. But I think behind that, there are two or three things. One is the crisis in U.S. Diplomacy, U.S. Democracy. U.S. democracy is in very bad shape. There's no doubt about it. Because if these are the kind of candidates that they can put up for national elections and as presidents, then you can see how behind it the structures of democracy are very hollow. Secondly, this polarization in the United States between Democrats and Republicans, and it's become very sharp to the point that some people are even suggesting that there could be a civil war in the United States if things go out of hand. Um, so this crisis of democracy is real. Uh, and here I'd like to mention something which is very relevant. Why is it? Why is it in a country of 300 plus million people uh, with which is diverse internally, which has a free press, people can express their opinion freely, which has a lot of political contestation in terms of ideas and everything else. Why is it that there are only two parties? How many parties are there in India? Where uh, people with a particular political point of view or certain attachment to certain ideas and principles uh, form their own parties. I think America is not sufficiently democratic. Why is there no Communist Party? Why is there no Socialist Party in the United States of America? An entire spectrum of political thinking is not adequately represented in the US political system. And there is, of course, the fundamental uh, question mark on US democracy, too. One, of course, is that the electoral system. Uh, Even if you win by majority, it's not necessary you will become president because the electoral system is such that it's a complicated subject. But the fact is that it's a group of people within the constituent states of the United States which will then decide uh, what what is the number of votes and what is the degree of support you have, despite the fact that you may win the majority vote. And then there is, of course, the spectacle of U.S. elections being contested. It goes to the Supreme Court. Can you imagine that if in India, the result of our elections were to be ultimately decided by the Supreme Court? But this is what has happened in the United States more than once. And thirdly, you saw the spectacle last time when Trump got defeated. They went and laid siege to the Capitol Hill. They didn't want to accept the result of the elections. And even now, there is a view, and Trump was asked this question directly in the interview, that would you accept the elections results? And he said, well, if the election was fair, I would, which means there's a question mark. If the elections are not fair, who's going to determine whether the elections are fair or not? So to answer your question, I think it is of concern to the global community uh, that the election is being fought between two candidates which do not seem to be up to the mark. And Europe is terrified of the idea of Trump becoming president of the United States. In India, we are far more relaxed. Apart from the general issues about the competence of these two people, uh, we are we are reasonably confident that we'll be able to manage the situation. We have bipartisan support in the U.S. Congress, and Modi had very good relations with Trump, and he has had very good relations with Biden. So whoever wins, I think India can be relatively more relaxed, which is why some people have asked me the question also as to why is it that in India there is not much concern about the US elections, and the answer I've given you.